Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is looking at the full moon on August 1st, 2023, and it's going to be in the sign of Aquarius. This is the first of two full moons in the month of August. The second one is called a blue moon. It's interesting because I'm going to be labeling this video a blueberry moon because it has to do with the harvesting of certain crops. And it's funny because I've been eating blueberries for a couple of months now, but of course they're from different areas of the country, and these Native Americans who named it that way were speaking about their immediate area, and this is around the Great Lakes region. So I was born in Chicago, so that's one of the Great Lakes. Lake Michigan, and it's also called the full sturgeon moon. But when I was looking it up, they mentioned something about the blue moon. They, instead of blueberry, they were telling me about blue moons, and they said it was under the same and the astrological season. So of course this would be during Leo season. That's not true, because the second one is actually when we get into Virgo season at the end of August. And so anyway, that's a significant thing about the month of August, but also there's a particular holiday that falls on the 1st as well. It's called Lammas, and there's another word, I don't know if it's Gaelic or whatever, Lugnachda, I don't know what language that is, but anyway, it's a pagan holiday, and it marks the midpoint between the summer solstice, which was, in the third week of June, and then the equinox this autumn. So this has to do with harvesting grain. So it's a very similar thing of what we were talking about. The green corn moon that this full moon is also called is that the corn is grown to the fullest extent, but it still is not ready to be picked. And it's interesting because I went to the farmer's market probably about a few weeks ago, and they didn't have any corn, and I was like, what's going on here? Because I had bought corn, but it was from Georgia, and if you're living in the Midwest, you might get confused sometimes about where these where this produce is coming from. So yeah, so I guess August is typically the time when they're harvesting it in my neck of the woods. So anyway, but this is, European. And I guess in Ireland, in the early days, they would bake their first loaves of bread with the new crop of grain at this time. So that's pretty cool. Okay, well, let's look at what's happening at this particular full moon. So at every full moon, we have an opposition between the sun and the moon. And in this particular case, the sun is in Leo, 9 degrees. The moon is in Aquarius at 9 degrees. And these two signs are interesting in that they represent houses that I don't see as kind of complementary. Opposing signs are called complementary signs. Sometimes you can see the connection between the two signs that oppose one another. Like my sign is Sagittarius, and Gemini is the opposite sign, and the houses that they rule are both mental houses. So there's like some connection with the mind there. Now with Leo and Aquarius, I struggle to find connections because the 5th house that Leo represents is about creative self-expression. And I mean, it's about the individual versus the collective, I guess you could say in that sense. But I don't even see the Leo as the individual with the fifth house. The fifth house is the house of love. And so that involves more than one person, and pleasure and things of that nature. The 11th house is about groups, group associations, friendships, which is another form of groups. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I could see it from that standpoint of, see, the first house to me is what I see as the individual more than the fifth house. With Leo, I think of the person who is expressing themselves creatively. So in that sense, that creative self-expression is unique to that individual. And with the 11th house, if there is a creation that is taking place, it is with others. So it's a time when you may find yourself really resonating with, feeling connected to others in an emotional way. And of course, this can play out. I'm always looking at the possibilities for the collective in terms of world events and things like that. It feels like a good vibe to me when I look at even the squares, like there's squares to Jupiter, which is like too much of a good thing. But there's also trines to Jupiter. And I was listening to some other type of astrologer or somebody saying that it was going to be very intense, and I don't see that at all. Some of the signs, I'm just going to talk about the personal planets and what signs they're in. You get a feel for it. The sun and moon are obviously Leo, Aquarius. Then we have Mercury is in an early degree of Virgo. Mars is also in Virgo and Venus is in Leo. So we have, with the Aquarius and the Virgo energy, the air and the earth, we have a sense of detachment. With the Leo, we have that over-the-top emotional, but not like the water signs, kind of fiery, but warm type of influence. So to me, that's great because we have a balance. We have like the best of both worlds. So it doesn't, there's not that tipping point of like, oh gosh, this is like going too far. So, with Mercury in Virgo, in the sign that it rules, we can be sifting through information. Definitely Virgo is a sifter type of a sign because it's very analytical. And even Aquarius is analytical, and that's in the moon position. Aquarius, some people might not know this, but Aquarius is an intuitive sign. It uses the power of its mind. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think that the Aquarian insight, psychic insight, kind of comes in a flash because of its being ruled by Uranus and being that awakener type of energy. And sometimes it can be, when I say a flash, it's that suddenness of it. So all of this suggests that we may, if we are getting news, which we're always getting, let's face it, we're always getting news. But in the last few years, it has become more front and center in terms of what it is that we are receiving, because we are, some people are hungry for information because of certain things that they are concerned about. And they're waiting for this news to arrive. But then when it does, or if we get little tidbits, we're constantly wondering, is this the truth? Is this distorted? When I think of distortions, I think of Neptune, because Neptune has been, making hard angles to certain planets that have been transiting. And I'm trying to think of, I'm talking about for long periods of time. I can't think of it right off the bat, but even when Jupiter was in Sagittarius a few years ago, they were squaring off and that kind of thing. Neptune has been in its own sign of Pisces for the last, I would say, 11 years, maybe. And so I think that has had its own effect on the collective because it's a, generational planet, and not in a necessarily good way. And I don't mean to diss the planet Neptune nor the sign of Pisces, because they have some beautiful qualities. But in terms of the challenging ones, even like addiction and in addition to deception, I think that there have been some impacts on the collective that are readily available if you are looking for them. And, it is what it is. And so anyway, what I feel that is possible here, because we also have Saturn in Pisces, but Saturn is retrograding. So this is more of getting very oh yeah, and I think Neptune is retrograding too. So both of these have a sobering effect, because something may not be able to be implemented properly, and they're not anywhere close in degree, so they're not forming a conjunction or anything like that. But in any case, the point is that there's also hard angles are being formed to Saturn from Mercury, Venus, and Mars. And I feel like in terms of all of us, this can impact with Venus, the monetary system. There's things are going on that, or well, I shouldn't say monetary system. Venus is money. Well, it could be something along those lines, but Saturn is that authority, So, for instance, with Mercury opposing Saturn, people will rebel and challenge what they're being told through Mercury, and there could be blowback, and even like if people received some sort of what do you call it, like dictate from authority figures like politicians and so-called experts, they may be like throwing facts back at these people at this time. If there's some kind of disclosure, which any kind of full moon can bring about. And also Aquarius is one of those signs because it is ruled by Uranus, and it can be the technology that the internet, you might see some disruption with that. Interestingly, I read in something yesterday that this electronic money transferring system, Zelle, was down yesterday through some bank. I forgot which bank it was that was out of operation for a period of time. And I was thinking to myself, well, why was the bank not in service? I don't know if they mentioned that in the article, but that would be an important little detail. So we could see something with electronics, with the internet going down. And in some, really, this has been anticipated for years that the internet will go down in a major way. Can't say if that's coming at this full moon, but the point is that if there was a major disclosure that the powers that be didn't want to get out right away, because, obviously the truth is going to come out sooner or later, but they didn't want that immediacy. they might try to do something like that, because that's pretty much one of the main reasons to do that in the first place. In addition to just disrupting all things that we do, because let's face it, we have a lot of electronic dependency. A lot of places don't take cash, or at least some don't take cash anymore. And you have to have a debit card to even buy something. So that would affect a lot. Okay, so in terms of the mood, I think that Venus is in Leo. Leo is a very ostentatious sign. If you have your natal Venus in Leo, you tend to be the kind of person who is very proud in love, meaning that you love to kind of show off that you're in love with someone. And it's just like, but you're also very generous in love, and you're just very romantic. And I see here that there is that opposition between Venus and Saturn. So because all full moons can heighten emotions, watch out for a tendency because of, I don't know if I'd say self-importance, but taking yourself too seriously. I don't know if that's the correct way. I'm talking about with Leo, really emphasizing yourself, your feelings in an exaggerated way, and therefore making or jumping to conclusions that aren't really true, simply because you are caught up in the moment. This opposition to Saturn, if anybody has this in their natal chart, this is one of the hard angles along with the square where the person can feel unloved. And when it's in the natal chart, I think that there is definitely truth to that. When it's happening as a transit, it's a fleeting emotion. Remember that. It's not like this permanent thing that's in your chart. So it could be based on just your own feelings in that moment, and and you might be extra sensitive for other reasons, and then you're overgeneralizing. And about those hard angles to Jupiter, the Sun, and the Moon. Oh, well, yeah, I said they were probably too much of a good thing, but actually the Moon square Jupiter can be very, have that tendency to blow things up. Jupiter's in Taurus, which is a fixed sign. It's an earth sign. This square is a very detached square because the moon is in Aquarius. But it can be these emotions that are very stubborn. And this has a lot of fixed energy attached to it, this particular full moon. And when our feelings are kind of rigid, it's hard for us to see other people's points of view, and it's just like me, the Leo kind of a thing. And it's and I'm like I said, I'm a Sagittarius. I think all fire signs are like that they have that tendency to be very self-absorbed, not necessarily selfish though, just wrapped up in the self because of that aspect of creative self-expression. So this is a great time for people to create, because Venus is supporting a very creative sign. And the full moon is a very creative period of time. Leo is the fifth house ruler, and children and conceiving children is part of that. Full moons, this is, opposing Leo, but still there might be someone that some of you might want to be aware of this if you are not wanting children at this point. And And with Mars in Virgo, there is this, I think this is a very this is very supportive energy for anyone who is trying to do I was going to say a spring cleaning, but we're well into summer, right? Because Mars is very industrious and it loves to organize, loves to clean. Great cleaning energy. Leo is a very hardworking sign too. Or if you have any other task that you are looking to do, I think this is a great time. I think the full moons, sometimes they use that to clear out, what doesn't serve you anymore. And that can even be in your physical space. So, anyway, I think I'm going to leave that there. I hope that you have a great blueberry moon and take care. Bye.